This is a video for Chapter 12, Tutorial 1. We're going to be making this assembly here, which is called a bench vise. So you can look online and grab the tutorial files, all the part files that we need to create this assembly, and that's what we're going to be working with. So there's your initial picture here of the bench vise, and if you look in your textbook in Chapter 12, you'll see that it gives you a bill of materials here. So there's all of your different part numbers that we're going to be using, and over here is the quantity for all those things. And then you can see here's our assembled view here that calls out those parts, and then you've got orthographic views of each of the individual parts provided for you in your textbook. So normally you would have to go and draw each of those individual parts. I've just given them to you already, so you can download them and start from there rather than starting with nothing. So there you can see all the different parts and pieces that we're going to be using. So I'm going to kind of follow along a little bit with the textbook, and we're going to go ahead and do this video. So I went on and downloaded and unzipped the part files, and I'll just show you quickly here. This is what the assembly file is going to look like. So this is what we're going to try to build in SolidWorks. So it moves, and we can spin it around and look at it in all the dimensions and see all the different parts over here. So I'm in an assembly. You can see that by the icon up here in the top left, and you can see here this is the order in which I put all of the different parts into this assembly. So we started up here with the vise body, and then we add the jaw to it. So that's kind of our first steps, is to bring in the vise body and then add the jaw to it. And so that's what the instructions are telling us to do right here. So I'm going to start a new assembly file in SolidWorks. So I'm going to choose new, and this time instead of a part file, I'm going to click over and grab the assembly file and click OK. And now we're ready to start putting in our parts. So I'm going to, on the left, click on Browse, and then you need to navigate to wherever you saved those files at. So mine happened to be out here in this area. Let's see. And I'm looking for the vise body. So here's my vise body, and it's a solid part file, PRT file, and I'm going to click Open. And so now you can see it's there. If I needed to move it around, I could use these buttons right in this area, but that's exactly how I want it to sit. So I'm just going to click once to place that part down. So now that part is part of my assembly. So here I have assembly 1, and you can see the first part that I laid down was the vise body. So now we're ready to go ahead. Now that we have our vise body in here, we're ready to place our vise jaw. So I'm going to come on the assembly tab up to Insert Components. I'm going to click Browse, and it should open up into the same folder where we were before. I'm going to click Vise Jaw and Open. So now I have a vise jaw, and I'm going to go ahead and click to place it down on the screen. So now I have two parts, but I have to put in some relations and mates between this part and that one so that they work appropriately. And so that's where your textbook goes through and does it step by step for you so you can see what this looks like. So what we need to do is get that vise jaw so that it sits in relation to the vise body correctly. So that's what we're going to work on, is adding those. So now I have my vise jaw in here, and I'm going to use the mate tool to get it to where it's kind of like when we add reference geometry. This is a little bit different. I'm going to mate one part to the next. So I'm going to click Mate, and I'm going to grab this surface right there, and then I'm going to grab this surface down here and say that those need to be coincident. So coincident's the one that I want. I'm going to push the green check mark. So now if I push Escape and I take this piece and I start to move it, it's going to remain flat against that surface right there. So then I can also do another mate, and I can say that, let's say that this surface here mates with this surface there. And so now you saw it slide over, and it's coincident again. Green check mark that. And so now when I move it, it's going to move like it needs to move. I could put in some more mates so that it didn't end up with something like this, but that's okay. That's all that we're going to get into in this class, is getting it lined up like so. So we've got those parts mated now together. So the next piece that we're going to add in is the jaw screw. So I'm going to go to Insert Components, and I'm going to grab the jaw screw. And we're going to place one of those down in our assembly file. So we need to take this jaw screw and put it in there like it needs to go. So if we look in our drawing, you'll see that the larger part right here is what sticks out this way, and the rest of it all lines up. So I'm going to choose Push Escape so I don't have anything selected, Mate, and I'm going to grab this cylindrical part here and the cylinder here, and you're going to see that it brought those then together. Centric constraint. The next thing to do is to put the face of the jaw screw right here against that piece. So that's what we're going to work on doing next. So you have to twist your model around, and you may have to push Escape and slide and move some things back and forth so you can see. But if we look at our drawing, what you'll see is that this face here and this face here, they line up. So if you look at your drawing, you'll see that this face here and this face back here line up. So what we need to do is to make that mate. So I'm going to push Escape so I don't have anything selected, and I'm going to grab the Mate command and then say that there and back here line up. I think I grabbed the right ones. Didn't grab the right face. That's okay. So I'm going to push Undo, Control Z. So I got rid of that mate. Let's try one more time. I must have grabbed the wrong face. I did grab the wrong face. It's showing me this face back here. All right, let's try that again. So Mate, I'm going to grab here, and then I'm going to grab this face right there and say that those are mated up together. And so now when I go to, there we go. Now when I move, you see how that piece goes together. All right. So I can even kind of look at this from the top down, and I can take just this jaw screw piece and spin it around. And you can see that it's spinning there and moving inside the hole. You can see that it all moves together now, which is what we want. So anytime you want to go in and look at a part and see what mates have been applied, there's two different ways to do it. So if I want to see what mates have been applied to this jaw screw, I can expand it over here. Then I can come down to Mates in Assembly, and then you can see that there's a concentric mate there and a coincident mate made right there. That's one way to look at them, or you can look in here and see all the various mates that are in the body, and those are in order that we created them. So that's definitely something you can go over and do. If you want to get rid of one of these, you can right click on them and choose delete, and then that mate will be gone. So now we're ready to move on to the next step. We're going to add in the clamping plate. So I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to flip it over here and look at the underside. And this is where your 3D connection mice really come into play and make this a little bit simpler to do. So I'm going to go to Insert Components and grab my clamping plate. And there it is. And when we look at the clamping plate, you're going to see that there's a countersunk side on one side. Okay, so that's important that you look at that piece and see how it's countersunk on that side and flat on that edge. So make sure you're selecting the right parts and pieces. So we want to take that and make those concentric holes, get those holes to line up, and then make it flat as well. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to say I want to mate this surface here to that surface there. And on this one, I may have to play around with it a little bit because it's not exactly doing what I want it to do. So under Mate Alignment, I actually want it to be anti-aligned, so I'm going to flip it around. So that's this button right down here. So there we go. It's flipped in the correct direction now. So it's, if I push escape, it's there. You'll see it's lined up, but I need to line these holes up. So I'm going to, on purpose, kind of move it out of the way a little bit. And now I'm going to do a mate, and I'm going to line up these holes. So I need this hole and that hole to be concentric. Green check mark that one. And then I'm going to push escape and twist this thing around a little bit so I can see what I'm working with. Then I'm going to do another mate, and I'm going to grab this hole here and that hole there and force those to also be concentric, and green check mark that. So now our clamping plate is in the right spot. So we can see now we have our clamping plate installed. So we move on and we look at our next place is the oval philistor that sits up here in the top. We're going to pop that in. So insert components, browse. I'm going to add in the philistor. And I'm going to take this and spin it a little bit so I can see where I'm working. Pop that in there. Alright, so you can see where it's sitting at. So the first thing I'll mate up is this cylindrical part. So that cylinder there meets with that cylinder there. Let's see, and that's in the correct spot. Now it's way too deep, right? So I can take it and twist it and pull it up. Okay, so you can see there I can pull it up, but it's still cylindrical. So the next thing that I can do is say to mate and say that this surface right there mates with the underside of that philistor. There we go. And green check mark that. Alright, so that is now placed where it needs to go. The next thing that I have are the set screws. So there's set screw 1. There's actually 4 of those. So I'm going to go ahead and put that one in next. So insert components, browse, and then set screw 1. And this time there are 4 of these. So I can flip my model around here a little bit and say 1. Now that I have 1 on here, I can come over here and select the whole body, and I can do a Control-C copy and a Control-V paste. Now I have another one. You might have to zoom out a little bit to see where it pasted that one. Oh my, can't see it at all. So I'm going to hit Control-Z to undo. Put my mouse over here, and I'll do a Control-V paste. There we go. Another Control-V paste and another one. So there's all 4 of those set screws. So I'm going to go ahead and mate these up. And we're going to mate that under surface to that one. And we're going to say that those are anti-aligned. Let's see. Oh, I grabbed the wrong surface. That's not going to work. So I need to undo and get out of there. Let's try again. Those are countersunk. They're not flat. Let's try one more time. Let's do a mate and say that this concentric and that is going to be concentric. We may need to flip those a little bit. Let's see. So if I need to flip it and make it go the other way, I haven't talked about this yet, but there's a little button right here that says flip mate alignment. So I can hit the flip button, and you saw how it turned around there, and that's exactly what I wanted to have happen. So with this particular screw, what's going to happen when we push this guy in? Let's look at it. So if I can push it in there, you're going to see that it's going to stick out a little bit, right, based upon the hole size that's there. So it doesn't set all the way down in there, that particular. So it looks like maybe eventually the way that this is going to work is that's going to get machined out later on. So what we can do is hit mate and say that this surface and that surface align. Alright, we can do the same thing on all these other surfaces. So mate one cylinder to the other cylinder, and again you may have to flip direction. There we go. And then I'm going to make this surface and that surface. There we go. And I'm going to do the same thing over here for these other ones. So that cylinder to this cylinder, and flip it, and then this surface to that surface. Last one, cylinder to cylinder, flip it, and then face to face. There we go. So those screws are in there. Now we're ready to insert the second set screw, and there's 2 of those. So we have 1, and remember to get that second one in there. I'm going to push escape, select, Control C copy, put my mouse right here and click, Control V paste. So now I have 2 of them. So I'm going to hit the mate button and we'll do this cylindrical part of that. There we go. And it actually went in the correct way that time, so that worked well. And now I'm going to do this surface to that surface there and green check mark that. And then the same thing with the other one. This cylinder to that cylinder, and it went the right way on me. And then here and there is going to line up and be flush. Alright. So you can see how this piece is coming together, and if you want to come in and install the rest of the parts you can. I'm going to go ahead and end the video there because I think you understand the concept. So I can click Save, and then you'll see that it saves as an SLD ASM for assembly. So make sure that you go in and you save those.